All right, this is Account 580, and I am just going to give a little talk about how to draw conclusions in professional research. So I think I'm going to exit this full screen. It's not really doing what I want here. All right, so I think the way to consider your research is that you have facts. So you have to establish what actually happened, the transaction and circumstances. You go out and you find guidance, which is the part that often students freak out about. And then you may not know you're doing it, but sometimes you do. You make assumptions, and assumptions are things you apply to both the facts and the guidance sometimes, but in particular the facts where either something's misread and you assumed incorrectly a fact set, or the facts were incomplete, so you layered an assumption on top of it. And first of all, I guess I want to get you out of the mindset of correct or incorrect. You want to be in the mindset of documenting the facts, guidance, and assumptions that support your conclusion. Because later when you're talking to people or trying to explain it to people, if you are aware of your facts and the guidance and assumptions you've made, then where you disagree and you're listening to somebody, it makes it easier to understand the road they're going down versus the road you're going down. Okay, so you take all these facts, you establish the facts, the guidance, and assumptions, and you're going to do this in your paper, and to a lesser extent in your presentation, but they'll still be there. But in a presentation setting, it's a higher level because things happen very quickly, but your work on the paper establishes it. Then here's kind of the part you bring to the party, is the analysis. So once you establish the facts, guidance, and assumptions, you have to do analysis. Now, it sounds like a no-brainer. However, one common kind of, maybe not a mistake, but a shortcoming is concluding something just by saying the guidance says do this, so we do that. But the analysis should be considering these facts and this guidance, and perhaps some assumptions, but primarily the facts and the guidance. The facts fit this guidance, so I can conclude that. So the analysis part is where you mix it all up and explain how it fits. Because oftentimes you have competing guidance. So when you have an overall conclusion, you could have competing guidance and typically the same facts and assumptions, but you may also have, it'd be hard to maybe have different facts, but you might say, if I interpreted the facts this way, so if I make this assumption, or where there's this gap in the facts, I have this other assumption, okay? I might conclude that. But if I have other guidance I'm looking at, you have two or more pieces of guidance, perform analysis between competing conclusions. So you have to make sure that your research is complete. In a professional setting, if you had a memo, you'd also have to say the things you looked at but excluded. For your presentation, so for Prezi, for your live Prezi, this is very important to explain why not. Okay, so if you come across or you think of another alternative, it's really important to be able to explain why that second conclusion didn't hold up to the other conclusion. So, and I just give a simple example here, even though we're doing the audit thing, and you could have, especially where you have your opinion, what was the most important audit failure, there could be more than one answer that's supportable. But here, let's say guidance number, let me change my pen here because I forgot to put a number. Guidance number 1 relates to revenue recognition in general, just the general rules about revenue recognition. Guidance number 2 relates to sales with right of return. And the guidance in number 1 and number 2 result in different conclusions. Okay. Let's say that your facts are that there's sales returns. So you would conclude, all right, if I accept the general rules of sales revenue, it's conclusion A. If I accept the particular rules of sales with right of return, it's conclusion B. And because the guidance in number 2 is more specific and fits better the fact set, in this case, I'm going to go with conclusion B because I have determined that guidance number 2 rules. So this little diagram up here is for a conclusion by conclusion, but then after that, you have to compare your overall conclusions, okay, for it to be complete. All right. So it's one thing to have a correct answer, but it's another thing to be able to explain it. And the 580 presentation, which is a exit requirement in addition to your course grade, is really all about supporting the conclusion. So, if you happen to get a fact wrong and your conclusion's wrong, that's really not going to be a big deal if your analysis here is spot on, okay? And then in addition, if in the presentation you're asked what if the fact is the other way, you're able to consider that and how you would have concluded differently, okay? So just big picture, it's important where you end up here, the end is less important than explaining the process. Okay. So what's really, really important for you to do in both the paper and in the presentation is to explain the setup, which is the facts, guidance, and assumptions, and then the process of how you got to the conclusion given those facts, guidance, and assumptions. All right. So maybe change your mindset a little bit to, do I have the right or wrong answer? Because you can have the right answer, and if you can't explain it, it's going to be a very difficult presentation. So it's better to have thought really, really hard about the wrong answer and be able to explain it than to have not really thought about the right answer and not be able to explain it. Okay? And the whole process of working on the paper and the back and forth is about you coming to understand your thinking on how you reached a conclusion. All right? So make sure that in your paper and in your presentation, you're able to explain your conclusions.